Imagine waking up to find 400 dragon warriors standing outside your door, their wings folded like shields, their leader kneeling in silence, and in his hands a crystal that holds the secret to who you really are. This is the moment Cassidy's life changes forever, where a simple act of kindness sparks a battle between fear and destiny, and the truth of blood and legacy can no longer be hidden. If you are new to the channel, then please subscribe to the channel and like the video, and tell us in the comments where are you watching from. Now let's jump into the story. The morning began with silence, but it was not the silence of peace. It was the silence that comes just before the world changes forever. Cassidy Marin, a 17-year-old colonist living alone on the edge of the barren flats, woke to the faint vibration of the ground beneath her shelter. She thought it was another sulfur vent cycling, but when she pressed her ear against the reinforced polymer wall, she heard something deeper. It was steady, powerful, and countless in number. She hurried to the narrow viewing port and froze. Stretching across the red desert, 400 dragon warriors stood in perfect formation. Their scales shimmered like polished metal, glowing with bronze, copper, and hidden shades that caught the twin suns of Zirian 7. Not one creature moved. Not one sound broke their stillness. Wings folded tightly against their backs created a wall of living shields. Cassidy had never seen such discipline. Her heart hammered, and she thought for a moment they could hear the panic rushing through her chest. Yesterday, she had crossed the sulfur ravine to save a tiny injured creature with a torn wing. She had not known what it was, only that it was small, frightened, and in pain. She carried it through toxic waters while her suit screamed warnings. She had whispered soft words of comfort, words she thought were her own, but they had flowed like another language. When she set the hatchling down on the far bank, it looked at her with strange, knowing eyes and vanished into the canyon. She thought she would never see it again. Now, standing before her was an entire army of its kind. Dragon warriors did not travel in silence just to threaten one human girl. They did not kneel without reason. Yet, as Cassidy pressed her back against the cold door of her shelter, the leader of the army lowered himself to one knee. The ground trembled with the weight of his massive body. The other warriors remained motionless, heads bowed, wings glittering like a sea of metal in the sun. The leader held something in his clawed hands. Light from the twin suns caught the object and sent rainbow colors dancing across the sand. Cassidy's breath caught in her throat. She had seen it before. Yesterday, the hatchling had clutched that very crystal, its small claws tight around it as she carried it through the current. Fear mixed with curiosity. She knew dragon warriors were feared across the colonies. Legends said they were guardians of ancient treaties, protectors of secrets, and keepers of powers that humans could not imagine. But legends also said they were merciless when crossed. So why were they here, waiting outside her dome, kneeling instead of striking? Cassidy hesitated, then pressed the seal release. The door slid open, just enough for air to rush in, carrying the scent of ozone and heated metal. Through the narrow gap, she saw the warrior's face. His jaw was marked with glowing lines that pulsed like living light, forming patterns that seemed both language and code. His eyes did not hold anger. They held something even more unsettling: respect. He rose to his full height, towering above her, nearly 12 feet tall. His wings could have covered her shelter in shadow. His voice came low, layered with harmonics her translator implants struggled to process. You risked the sulfur river to save her. Cassidy's hands trembled, but her voice came in a whisper. She was hurt. I couldn't leave her. The warrior's expression did not shift, but the stillness of the circle seemed to deepen. The object in his hands shimmered again, patterns crawling across its surface, shapes that hurt her eyes when she stared too long. She realized it was not just a crystal. It was something alive, with memory. She looked back at the kneeling warriors and felt the weight of the moment press against her chest. This was no accident. She had stepped into something larger than she could understand. The child she had saved was not simply a lost dragon. The warriors had not come for revenge. They had come for her, because she had done something that changed everything. As the suns climbed higher in the sky, the silence grew heavier. Cassidy knew the decision she made now would shape the rest of her life. She could remain the orphaned colonist, living in the shadows of forgotten mines, or she could open the door fully and face the truth standing before her. She reached for the control. The door opened wider, and sunlight poured across the floor of her shelter. The warrior stepped closer, the ground shaking beneath his weight. In his hands, the crystal pulsed with shifting symbols. Cassidy's reflection flashed across its surface, but for a moment, she saw something else, something not entirely human, staring back. A voice rose from memory, words she had spoken to the hatchling yesterday. They had felt strange, as if borrowed from another life. "Be strong, little star sister," she had said. The warrior's eyes sharpened. "You spoke in the old tongue," he told her, "a language no human has spoken for 50 years. Cassidy's throat went dry. She shook her head. "I don't know that language. I only spoke what felt natural." The warrior lowered the crystal. "You are not what you believe yourself to be," he said, "and that is why we kneel." The air seemed to thicken. Cassidy stood on the threshold of her shelter, her heart racing as 400 dragon warriors bowed in unison. She felt the truth forming like a storm on the horizon. The stillness was ending. The roar was about to begin. The crystal in the warrior's hands began to glow as if alive. Cassidy Marin felt its strange light wash over her face. Color shifted across its surface, bending into patterns that seemed to move on their own. When she touched it, the symbols twisted faster, and a beam of light projected into the hot air. The projection formed an image of a dragon unlike the others. Her scales shimmered with silver and violet, her eyes calm and wise. She carried something in her arms. Cassidy's breath caught when she saw it. The dragon held a human infant, wrapped in cloth that glowed faintly, as if woven from starlight. The child looked so familiar that Cassidy felt her knees weaken. The warrior's voice carried through the stillness. "This is Nightsinger, one of our greatest scientists." She searched the old records, the stories before humans and dragons separated. She believed our species shared more than history. She believed we once shared blood. Cassidy stared at the glowing image of the infant. Her chest tightened. The baby's eyes were too bright, too clear, and though she had never seen herself as a child, she knew what she was looking at. She whispered, "That's me." The warrior nodded slowly. "You are the convergence child, born to bridge two worlds. Our kind has waited for you, though we thought you lost." The other warriors remained kneeling, their heads bowed, as if the air itself had grown sacred. Cassidy's mind spun with confusion. She had always believed she was only human, a forgotten colonist who survived storms and silence. Now the truth rose like a tide she could not stop. The projection shifted again. This time, the light revealed dragons, young and small, their wings folded tightly. Veins of greenish color spread across the membranes of their wings, like cracks in glass. They trembled with sickness. "Our young are dying," the warrior said. "A sickness not born of nature, but crafted in hidden labs. We have lost too many, and the cure escapes us." Cassidy's stomach turned as she remembered the hatchling she had saved the day before. Her wing had been torn, but there had also been a sickly color along its edge. Yet when Cassidy carried her across the Sulphur River, the small creature clung to her, and by morning was healed. The warrior continued. "My daughter returned from the ravine, healed overnight. Her wound closed, her sickness gone. She told us you carried her through poison waters, that you spoke in the old tongue, and that your presence brought her strength. It is why we are here." Cassidy shook her head. "I don't understand. I didn't heal her. I only helped her cross." An elder dragon stepped forward, his movements slow and deliberate. He carried a sealed container and opened it with care. Inside was a vial of glowing fluid. "This is the sickness," he explained. "We studied it and found human tools in its design. It is not natural. It was built to harm." Cassidy leaned closer, her eyes fixed on the shifting glow inside the vial. She felt a strange pull, as if the substance recognized her presence. Her skin tingled, and she stepped back quickly. "It reacts to me," she whispered. The elder nodded. "Because you are both. You are human, yet you carry dragon echoes in your blood. The sickness does not know what to do with you. Instead of harming, it bends." Cassidy's chest tightened again. She thought of the hatchling's small eyes, too ancient for her size. She thought of the words she had spoken, words she was not supposed to know. Her foster parents had never taught her another language. Yet somehow she had comforted the young dragon in speech older than the colony itself. The ground trembled suddenly. This time, not from the dragons. On the horizon, a line of vehicles appeared, kicking up dust as they moved closer. Their engines growled across the desert. The warrior lifted his head, and his glowing patterns dimmed. "They come," he said. Cassidy turned to see the convoy approaching. Armored vehicles rolled in formation, heavy weapons mounted on their roofs. She recognized the insignia on their sides. It was the mark of the mining consortium, the same company that had claimed land after her parents died. Her mouth went dry. The elder dragon spoke softly, his voice like wind across stone. "They will say you broke the treaty. They will say we forced you. They will try to take you. The leader warrior, Vardran, lowered his head to meet Cassidy's gaze. "We can fly you away. You will be safe with us." Cassidy looked again at the approaching convoy. She remembered the supplies the company had sent, always with questions about dragons in the area. She thought of the storm that killed her parents, a storm that came too perfectly timed to be natural. Anger flickered through her fear. She shook her head firmly. Running won't stop them. They will follow. They always follow. But maybe I can stop them another way. Vardran tilted his head, his glowing patterns shifting with interest. What way? Cassidy looked at the vial, then at the crystal still glowing in her hands. Inside, patterns of knowledge swirled like equations waiting to be read. It felt both overwhelming and strangely familiar. Her voice was steady when she spoke. "If the sickness bends in me, then maybe I can turn it. Maybe I can make it into something else." The warriors stirred for the first time, their wings rustling softly like wind over metal. Petra Holm, the settlement doctor who had arrived just that morning, stepped out of the dome. Her eyes widened at the sight of the army and the convoy beyond, but she placed a firm hand on Cassidy's shoulder. "If you're right, then this could change everything," she said. "But it's dangerous, too dangerous." Cassidy's eyes did not leave the approaching vehicles. "They've already made it dangerous. I won't let them win." The elder closed the vial and handed it to Vardran. The leader studied Cassidy in silence, then nodded once. "The circle trusts you," he said. The engines grew louder, and the dust line thickened. The stillness of the dragon warriors held, waiting for her choice. Cassidy took the vial into her trembling hands. The world around her narrowed to the crystal's glow, the sickness inside the vial, and the pounding of her own heart. She whispered to herself, barely louder than a breath, "This is where it begins." A roar of engines grew louder until the air itself trembled. Dust rose on the horizon, carried by a convoy of armored vehicles, cutting across the barren flats. Cassidy Marin stood in the open, with the crystal in one hand and the vial of shifting sickness in the other. Behind her, 400 dragon warriors knelt in silence, their wings folded, waiting for her command. The vehicles slowed to a stop in a sharp formation, encircling the dome shelter. Armored hoods opened, and weapons lifted into place. Speakers crackled, and a voice rolled out across the desert, cold and practiced. "Cassidy Marin," it said, "by order of the consortium, you are in violation of your settlement agreement. Step away from the creatures and surrender immediately." Cassidy's pulse hammered, but her voice remained steady. "Good morning to you too, Mr. Hargreaves," she called out. "Your men are early." The lead vehicle's door opened, and a tall man stepped out. Gregor Hargreaves wore a pale suit that glinted in the sunlight. His smile was thin, his eyes colder than the rifles aimed at the warriors. "I expected to find abandoned ruins," he said, his voice magnified. "Instead, I find you consorting with dragons. This land is now under consortium authority." Cassidy gripped the vial tighter. Every word he spoke reminded her of the supply shipments he had sent after her parents' deaths, always asking if she had seen dragons nearby. Every word confirmed the storm that killed her family was no accident. Dr. Petra Holmes stepped forward, her bag of instruments still slung over her shoulder. She is a minor, Petra called. You have no right to strip her claim. I am a registered physician, and I will report this. Hargreaves turned his smile toward her. Reports vanish. Settlements vanish. But resources remain. He gestured at the warriors. Soon the records will say a tragic attack occurred here. One survivor. Me. Behind Cassidy, Vardrin, the leader of the dragon warriors, shifted his wings. His glowing jaw patterns flickered with restrained anger. Give the order, he said quietly. We will protect you. Cassidy shook her head. No, if you fight, he will have his story. We need another way. Hargreaves raised a hand, and weapons clicked into readiness. Dust swirled tighter around the vehicles. Cassidy lifted the vial, and its glow caught his eye. You made this, didn't you? She called. The sickness in their young, the poison in their wings. This was your design. For the first time, Hargreaves' smile faltered. Nonsense, he said quickly, but the slight shift in his voice betrayed him. Cassidy opened the vial's seal. A shimmer of dangerous light flickered inside. Petra's eyes widened. Cassidy, don't, she whispered. Cassidy's voice was calm. I carried one of their young across a river yesterday, and she healed overnight. This sickness bends when it touches me. If he built it, then maybe I can change it. She touched a drop of the glowing substance to her skin. It burned like fire. But instead of spreading sickness, it twisted, transformed, reshaped itself through her blood. Violet silver scales shimmered faintly along her arms. Her breath deepened, carrying a strange harmonic resonance that filled the air. Gasps rose from the warriors. Petra stared in shock. Even Hargreaves took a step back. You're insane, he shouted. That toxin will kill you. Cassidy's voice came out layered. They can be healed, but only with a cure made from both dragon and human medicine. Cassidy raised her voice so the entire convoy could hear. You wanted a story of monsters and saviors. Here is the new story. Your sickness has been rewritten. The only cure requires cooperation between humans and dragons. No one can survive without the other. Hargreaves' eyes narrowed with fury. My board will bury you, he spat. Cassidy met his glare. Then your board will crawl to our healers for help. And when they do, the truth will come with them. Your storm, your labs, your crimes. Everything will be revealed. Behind her, Vardrin spread his wings in silent support. The kneeling warriors did not move, but their presence filled the desert with quiet power. Cassidy let the shimmering scales fade from her arms, holding herself balanced between both forms. She looked at Hargreaves one final time. You built your empire on fear. I will build mine on truth. Sirens sounded in the dis. Not corporate alarms, but open-channel distress signals. Independent responders were on their way. Cassidy stood taller, the crystal pulsing in her hand, the desert wind carrying her words across the flats. I am Cassidy Marin, she declared, daughter of two worlds, bridge between human and dragon. And today, I choose to stand. The circle of warriors bowed lower, their wings shimmering like fire in the sun. The engines of the convoy still rumbled, but the power had shifted. The choice had been made. Dust swirled around her boots, and for the first time, Cassidy felt steady on the ground that had always threatened to swallow her. This was not the end. This was the beginning. The dust began to settle as the engines of the convoy grew quiet. The mercenaries lay scattered in the sand, not dead, but weak, their bodies struggling to adapt to the rewritten sickness now flowing through their blood. Dragons stood in watchful silence, their wings gleaming in the rising suns. The world seemed to hold its breath, waiting for what came next. Cassidy Marin stood at the center, her chest rising and falling with exhaustion. Her arms still carried faint traces of silver and violet scales, fading slowly as her human form reasserted itself. The crystal in her hand pulsed with steady light, as though it approved of the path she had chosen. Commander Vardrin stepped forward, his massive frame towering above her. The glowing lines along his jaw shifted with meaning. "The moment has passed," he said quietly, "but the echoes will spread. The consortium will return with more. They will not accept this outcome easily." Cassidy nodded, her voice low but firm. "They can return with armies if they want. What they saw today cannot be erased. Humans and dragons are not enemies. We are linked, and now the world knows." Dr. Petra Holm joined her side, brushing dust from her coat. "The cure will work," she confirmed, "but it requires both human science and dragon heal. That means cooperation is no longer a choice. It is survival." A murmur spread among the warriors. Some lifted their heads, wings shifting with anticipation. They had waited for centuries, bound by treaties and silence. Now a new path opened, and they looked to Cassidy to lead them. She took a deep breath, the desert air sharp in her lungs. "I am no commander," she admitted. "I am no ruler. I am only someone who carried a child across a dangerous river because she was hurt. If that is enough to start change, then I will walk this path. But I cannot walk it alone." Vardrin bowed, lowering his head until it nearly touched the ground. "You will not be alone. The Skyfire clan stands with you." Behind him, 400 warriors lowered themselves once more, wings creating a sea of shimmering color. Petra placed a steady hand on Cassidy's arm. "Your voice will carry farther than you think. People will hear the truth, and they will follow." The sound of approaching sirens grew. Rescue shuttles broke through the horizon, carrying both human and dragon medics. Their banners flew side by side, something unseen since before the Great Separation. As they landed, Cassidy felt a shift deep inside. This was no longer just survival. It was the start of something new. Within hours, the battlefield became a field hospital. Dragon healers worked beside human doctors, their methods blending in ways no one had thought possible. Warriors stood guard while children, both human and dragon, played cautiously at the edges. For the first time, the desert echoed with voices of cooperation instead of silence. As night fell, Cassidy climbed to the top of a ridge overlooking the camp. The twin suns dipped low, painting the sky with red and gold. Vardrin joined her, his wings folded neatly behind him. He studied her for a long moment before speaking. "Your mother believed in this," he said. "She dreamed of a day when our kind would live not apart, but together. She called it the convergence. You have brought it to life." Cassidy stared at the horizon, I never knew her. I never even knew the truth of who I was until yesterday. But I feel her presence. It's in the words that came from my mouth without learning them. It's in the way the sickness bends to my blood. It's in the echoes I carry. Vardran's eyes glowed softly. Blood remembers. Choices shape it. You have chosen to build bridges where others built walls. Below them, the lights of the camp shimmered. Humans and dragons shared food, stories, and laughter. The once silent desert now thrived with life. Petra climbed the ridge, carrying a data pad filled with notes. The council has agreed to build a joint academy, she announced. A place where dragon younglings and human children can learn together. They want you to lead it. Cassidy's mouth fell open. I'm 17, she said. I've lived alone in a shelter for years. I don't know how to lead an academy. Petra smiled. You already have. Today you taught us how to work together, how to see hope instead of fear. Leadership isn't about age, it's about choice. Vardran spread his wings against the starlight. They trust you because you are both, human and dragon, two voices in one body. You are proof that unity is possible. Cassidy let the words sink in. She thought of the children playing below, human hands passing a ball to dragon claws, laughter carrying into the night. She thought of the hatchling she had saved, who had unknowingly begun this journey. If I do this, she said quietly, it cannot be about me. It has to be about all of us. Equal voices, shared lessons, no separation. Then it will be so, Vardran said, bowing again. The stars brightened overhead, forming constellations named differently by each species, but pointing to the same light. Cassidy felt something stir in her chest, a warmth. Bridges with wings, she whispered. That's what we'll build. Not just walls of stone or treaties of paper. Bridges that can carry us through the skies, across the divides, into a future where no child grows up believing the other side is an enemy. Petra raised her eyes to the stars, and you'll be the first to walk it. Cassidy stood taller, her shadow stretching long against the desert floor. The girl who once thought she was alone was no longer a survivor. She was a symbol, a beginning, a bridge with wings. And so the night closed with hope, not silence.